And Lynn, I turned on the recording just because I figure it's helpful for folks that can't attend.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Right.
There's somebody. There's Audrey. Ooh, I'm not usually in this space, so I'm not sure how the lighting. It's okay. It's not great.
Hi, Audrey.
Hi. Finally home.
Yeah, welcome
Yay.
back.
Thank you.
Are you going to be home for a while now?
Oh
Or
God, I
no?
hope so.
Okay, if you say so.
I hope so.
You forwarded the email to me and not.
You have to, did you join? Did you sign up for it?
Probably did, but can you just forward it?
No, it has a join link. I'll send you what I have.
Mm,
You can always just sit over here.
No, I want to write in.
Okay.
It's all about the
And
same.
we'll probably give it about 5 minutes so everybody's logged on before we start.
Okay. Hmm. So you're taking some days off next week?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get stuff wrapped up here as much as possible this week. And then I'll be working from down south at my family's visiting my parents for Christmas.
At your other office, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who do we have here? Okay. Hmm. Hey, you're on. You did it.
All right, we've got some more people coming through. We'll give it a couple more minutes.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. What's this? Oh, more people, throngs of people. Wow.
Seeing some folks from OPD coming in.
It's
Hello.
good. Hi, guys.
Hello. Of
Hi, thanks for joining.
course, thank you for having us.
We're just giving it a few minutes for folks to filter in before we get started.
Copy that.
Okay. Oh, Jamie's coming? Wow.
Yeah, Jamie took great notes of our last time we did this, so
I was hoping you weren't thinking I was going to do that.
no.
Can't do everything. Oh. Great.
Gotta go back to sleep.
That didn't work very well. Whatever.
All right, looks like Joey's here. We've got Seth from Dan Kalb's office.
Hey, hey,
Hey,
Hey,
I hear
Joey, thanks for
Joey.
joining.
how you all doing?
Joey.
Hi.
Always good. So,
All right, and while we're waiting for folks to filter in, I just put a link to the tentative agenda in the chat if anyone wants to look that over before we get started.
okay. Oh, yeah. It's still early-ish.
And just let you guys know, my name's Jeff Thomas. I'm here for Captain Rosin. I'm a lieutenant with the Oakland Police Department.
So you're here for him, or you are him? Is he?
I think that's the same thing. Yes.
Is he going to be here as well then, or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And then Seth, do you know, is the councilman going to be joining us?
I think so, but let me check. I know that he had a meeting that went long and he might still be in it. Hold on. It is on his calendar, absolutely. And then the CED may still be going on.
Okay, no problem. We can work the agenda, but just to make sure he's able to speak when he joins.
Yeah, it looks like it's still in progress at the moment. Yeah, so he can probably hop in when they're done.
Open forum, share crowd.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing opening forum. Yep, he is still in that meeting.
There we go. Okay, thank you very much,
So
Madam and colleagues.
Do you have a tracker on him?
There's a lot more work to do, obviously.
No, actually, I can see him talking on the video. If you go to oakland.legistar.com, you too can see Councilmember Kalb speaking in the Community and Economic Development Committee.
Wowie, that's okay.
Next Tuesday at 1:30 and the agenda.
Can you not hear that coming out of this?
Yeah, we can hear.
probably-
Okay, all right, let me mute that. All right, there you
We
go.
take your word for it now.
All right, well, it's 5:06. I'll keep monitoring folks that come into the waiting room and let them in throughout the meeting, but we can probably go ahead and start.
Okay.
I wanted to just sort of kick off with introductions. So just starting with myself, my name's Katie Larson. I am the executive director of the Temescal Telegraph Business Improvement District. For anyone that's not familiar with what the Temescal BID is, we are a local 501c4 nonprofit. Our funding comes from property tax assessments within the boundaries of the commercial Temescal district. Those boundaries go all the way up Telegraph to the Berkeley border, all the way down Telegraph to West MacArthur, and then 40th Street from Telegraph to Broadway. So we've got some fixed boundaries that we're working within, and of course that overlaps with Council District 1. So we've got folks from Dan Kalb's office here, as well as OPD Area 2. So we've got some folks from OPD here as well. This is sort of a follow-up conversation to an event that we had in September. That was the first of these sort of community safety, crime prevention roundtable discussions. As I'm sure everyone's familiar with, there's been an uptick in incidences in the district, whether that's vehicle theft or property vandalism, commercial break-ins, all of those things. So the BID, we provide different services ranging from, small business support to marketing and branding for the district, as well as safety ambassadors, which are those folks in the red shirts that you see in the district 5 days a week, doing the cleaning, the hospitality, providing de-escalation support, just a full array of different things, all with the intention of improving the curb appeal and also just feeling of safety and security within the commercial district. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to my staff that's here. Got Joey Harrison, who is the BID's Director of Operations. Joey, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am Joey Harrison. I am the Director of Operation for the BID. I oversee the contract for the Our Clean team with Block by Block. And, I do provide the de-escalation training for the district. And do the homeless outreach portion as well for the district.
Thanks, Joey. And Joey also provides through the Temescal BID quarterly de-escalation trainings that are free to all residents and Temescal businesses to come through and get some hands-on training for de-escalating situations, especially things that, can be everyday occurrences in a business district, just disruptive patrons or, whatever it may be. Often things fall in the gray area where you might not necessarily need to escalate it to police, but you do need that support just so that your business can consider or continue, going about their day and business. So I'll get into the sort of resources that our team provides through Joey and the ambassadors. Yeah, and then I'll also, Jamie Rayford is on the call. She's our marketing and programs assistant. She'll be taking notes for the meeting. We're also recording the meeting just for folks that weren't able to attend. I know this was kind of a quick turnaround to get this one on the books, but we wanted to just have this meeting and get folks together to talk ahead of, the peak holiday season. And so we've also got a couple Temescal board members here. I'll introduce Lynn Howe, who chairs our Promotions and Safety Committee, which meets every month, the first Wednesday at 9:30. And we talk about things that sort of fall under this umbrella of community safety, crime prevention, as well as more of the promotional side of things that we do at the BID. And this sort of series of roundtable discussions was a product of that committee and some neighbors coming to us and just wanting to have this asking us to create space for a discussion like this, connecting businesses and neighbors to resources and city representatives. So thank you all for joining. I'll go ahead and let anyone else that wants to introduce themselves, if you want to just sort of speak up or raise your hand.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sergeant Alan Manguy from the Oakland Police Department. I am your Area 2 Sergeant from the Community Resource Officers section. I unfortunately we used to have a team of 6, and I'm currently down to 2 officers, one of which is on medical leave. So we're doing the best we can with what we have. We are tapping into resources, but I think we'll touch on that a little bit later on in the meeting.
I'll say hi, I'm Brian Cassidy. I'm a police services technician and I work for Neighborhood Services Division, and I deal with safety presentations as well as SEPTIT, which is crime prevention through environmental design. We do property exams, and Sergeant Manguy told me about this meeting and asked me to join in. So thank you.
Thanks for joining, Brian. All right, I see we also have Seth Stewart, who is Councilman Dan Kalb's Chief of Staff. And I see a couple other folks from our businesses that have been tuning in. But just to keep us on schedule, I can just move into the agenda. I sent the link in the chat for anybody that just joined. It has links to some of the things that I'll be talking about, as well as our resource directory that we started compiling at the last roundtable that we hosted. And just as a quick disclaimer, I am sick and working from home. So I asked Lynn to sort of help me co-host and guide the conversation, just because I feeling a bit under the weather, and might have to mute myself a couple of times. But yeah, so just to give you a quick recap of our last conversation, we came together in December, our friends at Daytrip, which is one of the Temescal restaurants in the district, volunteered their space. This was something that they were really interested in us hosting, making space for, hosting a conversation about. And we got, it was pretty well attended. It was nice that we were in person for that. And Councilman Kalb came, and some of the products that came out of that were a resource directory that we've been compiling. I will send the link in the chat now for that. That has everything from the OPD lines to some of the mental health services, city and county resources, as well as bid resources that are, we want to make sure our businesses and neighbors know they have at their disposal. Also, if you look through this guide and see anything that should be added, I'm constantly adding to this. Hopefully we'll come up with some more resources and things from this conversation that I can add. Any questions or comments, anything before we roll into the sort of meat of the agenda? Nope. All right. Okay. So, yeah, like I said, I sent the link for the Temescal resource directory. Look through that. It's got some really helpful things in there. One of the most helpful things that I, myself and Joey and our staff have been working on sort of increasing the visibility on is that Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our ambassadors, which are those guys that I mentioned in the red shirts, also called our clean team. They are during business hours during the week available. We have the phone number that goes straight to the ambassadors, and you can call them in any of those situations that I mentioned that haven't escalated to the point where they need to go to PD. But you just need, sort of support with de-escalation, whether it's getting a disruptive person out of the business or, the whole array of things that sort of come up. Just running a business in an urban area like this. And so we've got that. One thing that I'm excited to be working on with Joey right now, I had a meeting last month with the other leaders of the other bids in Oakland, with Mayor Schaaf, and she had basically said that she was combing through the city budget and anticipated finding some funds that could be allocated towards public safety in business districts, and asked for basically requests of how that money could be used and how it would best benefit our businesses. So I wrote in with a proposal saying that expanding our ambassador hours, where we have that hotline and support for businesses, and also just visibility and that feeling of security when you see our folks out in the district, being able to offer that on weekends and after 4 p.m. on weekdays is something that we've wanted to do and have been trying to work out within the constraints of our budget. So luckily the mayor accepted the proposal that we submitted, and all of the bids in Oakland, including the Temescal bid, are receiving a $20,000 grant from the city to increase safety and security personnel during this holiday season. So essentially what that means is that this funding is going to supplement what we already have budgeted for the standard business hours, that Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. To expand it so that we have some weekend coverage as we see the holiday shopping season sort of peaking. Joey has been working with Block by Block, who's our contractor on that. But that sort of weekend and evening coverage was something that had come up quite a bit at our last conversation. So I'm excited to share that that is something that we're able to actually make a reality, hopefully starting this weekend. Joey, did you want to add anything else on that?
No, I think you covered it pretty good. Yeah, we're hoping to start this weekend and have at least three, 2 to 3 staff members in bright shirts for hospitality. They will be walking our district, especially the areas that we have a lot of traffic in, and just offering hospitality and a very nice visual presence. So and the ability to answer business calls. So.
Great, thanks, Joey. And then another sort of bit of good news for our businesses. The city just relaunched a program called FIPTIP, which stands for Facade and Tenant Improvement Program. It's basically a massive grant program that has just this year been expanded to be citywide. Previously, Temescal was excluded from the districts that were eligible. So now all businesses citywide, assuming that they're a for-profit business and meet certain parameters, which most will, can apply for this grant that provides up to $70,000 or $75,000 in funding for internal and external improvements to their businesses, whether that is beefing up security, investing in cameras, you know, anything from repainting to security doors or really anything. So it's a really great program, but the really exciting thing that is a newer development on that front is there is a set aside from this like $3 million that the city is allocating towards the program that is specifically set aside for emergency window repair grants. So broken windows in commercial businesses were something that also came up at the last community conversation that we had. Obviously, that's a recurring cost for a lot of our businesses. Earlier, a couple months ago, Little Saigon had probably a dozen businesses' windows broken out over the course of, I think, one day. And there wasn't previously any, I don't believe, any support on the city side for businesses to make those repairs. And as we know, you know, when you have a broken window in your storefront, that it's not just the cost of replacing that window, but it's the cost of the security that then needs to be increased, and, you know, securing, whether it's with plywood or whatever. So basically this program is going to offer grants, first come, first serve, up to $2,500 for emergency window repair. If you look at the agenda that I sent in the chat, I've got the link to apply for that. It's open now. And those will be available through just first come, first serve basis until those funds are used up. And then before I hand it over to OPD, Councilman Kalb, I thank you for joining. Just wanted to give you a chance to add or say anything that you wanted to add.
Well, I'm sorry I was late. The committee that we had went a little long, so sorry about that. I'm not sure what else was presented already in terms of recent action or whatnot related to public safety or other things. So I'm not sure what I'd be adding. We did, as I think you probably mentioned, we did set aside some funds available for commercial districts, including Telegraph Temescal bid for enhanced public safety security efforts during the holiday season and thereabouts. So I think you're aware of that already. And so, and then you mentioned the facade improvements. I see Sergeant Manguy, you're a sergeant, right? Okay, good. I don't want to demote you inadvertently.
I'm also here with Lieutenant Thomason.
Oh, great. I didn't even notice that. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see. Oh, I see. Yes. Lieutenant, good to see you both. So, they'll provide, our police department does the best job they can, and they do a good job in trying to make sure they're present and visible, especially during the holiday season. And they always update community groups, including business improvement districts, on recent crime trends that affect their area. So they'll have more information than I will, no doubt.
Thank you, Councilman. And I see Brian sent the OPD SEPTED document in the chat. Brian, would you want to talk a bit about SEPTED? I didn't have that in the agenda, but I'm realizing I
I can
should.
just, it's ironically, myself and my colleague Marlon, who's also police service technician with neighborhood services, we do SEPTED exams. And this morning we had a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting with business development with the city of Oakland, including Shifra. You probably all know her. Okay. And one of the things we were talking about was, so if everyone doesn't know, SEPTED stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. There are certain basic SEPTED principles. We offer a free exam, whether it's to residents or businesses, basically any type of entity that requests it. It usually takes about 30 minutes. The basic principles are access control, territorial reinforcement, natural surveillance, and maintenance. But essentially, we walk through. It's an unofficial exam, but we make suggestions that may make a property less attractive to crime. And then we'll follow up with just it's not an official report, but I'll follow up with a summary of what we discussed. And it rang a bell regarding what you discussed, and Schiffer mentioned there are grants available now, because a lot of times for businesses, some of the things that we're suggesting might be cost prohibitive, unfortunately. So we're going to be getting some more flyer stuff, just try to help each other, reference each other, so that, businesses, if they're interested in a SEPTED, we can also give them some paperwork pointing them towards those grants that they could look into if they're looking to make improvements. I'll include my phone number and my email address. If anyone's interested in a SEPTED, please refer them to me. If they also Google Open SEPTED, that information will come up online for contacting our department. But that's something that, again, it's a free exam. It takes roughly 30 minutes. It can point them in the right direction towards making some improvements for their business that might help with safety.
And thank you. So the best way for folks to request those exams would be to call or email you?
Yeah, and I'll put that in the chat here next with my email and my phone number.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and I think that that's a great note that the funding that's available through the facade tenant improvement program can absolutely apply towards any of these security enhancements. The deadline to apply for those grants is January 31st. I took a training session with the city to help our businesses apply to that. So if anyone has any questions and is interested in submitting an application for those grants, feel free to reach out to me. Okay, great. And then I think with that, I can hand it over to OPD folks. I think some of the things that we had talked about at our last meeting, where we had talked about, or where folks had requested that we bring in OPD for these discussions. Obviously, we want to talk around, crime prevention and safety during the holiday season. And then I also had some questions about the macro program and whether that is citywide or something OPD is on top of, or if it's separate. And then I think we just have some broad questions around, crime trends and data in the district.
Katie, I could give a little bit of information about the macro program, unless there's somebody else here from macro.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. And I think many people here already know, we started this up, or we at least set aside money in the budget for this quite a while ago. And as with anything new, it takes a while to get up and running and train people and so on and so forth. It's housed in the fire department, in our emergency services division of the fire department. And it is up and running. It is not yet 24/7 citywide. It is, they cover 2 shifts, so about 16 hours roughly of a 24-hour day most of the time, for at least 5, usually often 6 days a week. And it's officially, it's in East Oakland and West Oakland, most of East Oakland, most of West Oakland. But in reality is if they're not on a call and they're available, somebody from North Oakland calls, they'll come. You know, they're not going to say no, as long as they're, you know, not on a different call. So officially, it's not 24/7 citywide. It will be eventually. Our goal is to bring it to that and to learn from the phases that we're in now. But again, if you have what might be a macro related situation, right now people still should call 911. Eventually there might be a separate phone number, but right now it's still 911. And you could explain what you believe the situation to be. You could suggest macro, but the dispatcher will make their evaluation. And if it's North Oakland and the macro teams are available, they will come out to North Oakland.
So Dan, can you say what kind of situations people might be using that for or needing it for?
That's a good question. There's more information on the fire department's website, and maybe Seth, you all see Seth here. You know Seth, one of my staff, my chief of staff who comes to these meetings. Seth, if you could search the fire department's website and then put a link in there in the chat while I'm talking, that'd be great. Basically, it's for what might be considered low-level, non-criminal or virtually non-criminal kinds of things, certainly non-violent kind of situations. The initial examples when we first created the program were people who might be on the street and have mental illness challenges, possibly homeless, and are causing some legitimate and serious problem in a community, but doesn't rise to the level of a typical kind of, you know, oh, we got to call the police, you know. And so that would be the stereotypical kind of example, but there could be other examples as well. So as long as you could accurately share with the dispatcher what is happening, and to not exaggerate what's happening, but to give an accurate description as best you can. Right now, they have been trained, and they're still learning, but they've been trained to try to identify what might be a macro call and what might be an OPD call. And OPD has been very cooperative and helpful in that training. And you know, again, we're still learning, but yeah, it's I hope that helps you. I think Seth just put something in the chat that might give more information.
I did, and I'll just comment on it real quickly. If you think about just generally speaking in big buckets, if you think about the number of non-violent calls that police get, everything from somebody blocking a driveway to somebody having some type of mental health disparity or disturbance, or an argument between a landlord and a tenant, or two neighbors, or what people hanging out at and disturbing the peace. All of those kind of things can all go under macro.
And if the dispatcher feels, based on your accurate description, that OPD might be necessary, then they'll send it on to OPD as well. So right now we're trusting the dispatchers, and so far we feel that they're doing a pretty good job in the discerning which is which.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I get questions about macro often and had been wondering, because I've heard from folks in North Oakland that they've had success with the program, but I know on paper it's not formally in North Oakland. So that's great to know that folks, and also to know that there's not yet a dedicated line for it, and that the protocol is still to call OPD, and then they'll make the call from there. I also in the chat sent a flyer that someone from the macro program gave me a while back, which sort of details those other situations where you might, it might be helpful to call macro. Any other questions about that before we move on?
Do things with the macro. Family members with macro. So I actually could have
Joey, I think your sound's breaking up.
Oh, it's about right.
Maybe try turning off the camera.
Okay, is it better
Maybe.
for now?
Uh,
Okay, so I said that.
We lost you again.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying that I do go out and do things with macro team. I have a family member who's part of macro, and I actually could have asked them to come to this meeting. Didn't think about it, but yes, I've gone out. They've had given out food and different things and did different volunteer programs. So I've gone to several of their meetings and volunteer with them. So I'll link you up with them so you can get more info and learn more about the program.
Thanks, Joey. All right, and then if that's all for macro for the minute, I can pass it off to Lieutenant Thompson and Sergeant Manguy.
Hello, my name's Lieutenant Jeff Thomason, and thanks for having me here today. I'm filling in for Captain Rosin. I know he's out of town today, so I'm acting Area 2 commander for the last couple of days. So I'm going to go over a bunch of stuff. Hopefully I don't get too into the weeds, and then you guys can bring me back in with your questions. I want to start off with, and I know you guys were talking about crime during the holiday season. I know every year we see an increase in robberies and burglaries, especially during December. It usually starts right close to Thanksgiving, and then it goes all the way through until the new year. The chief recognized this, and he has developed a 30-day crime plan to just address holiday crime and the uptick. So we're putting, and this is in connection with the last two 30-day crime plans that we've done. So about 60, 70 days ago, we had an uptick in violent crime in our city. The chief recognized this, and then we came up with a new strategy. And that strategy was to have the VCOC take part of the week, ceasefire take the other side of the week, and we more focus on street level violence that's taken place. We did have to put our CROs, which are assigned to me in West Oakland, assigned to VCOC, and then we took the CROs that were out east and assigned them to ceasefire to get the numbers up so that they can have arrest teams and focus on the people that were causing the violence. And those two 30-day crime plans were actually a success. We have had a drop in shootings and homicides in the last 2 months. The chief saw this and has transitioned these teams into the holiday crime plan, where they're, instead of being focused more in gang areas and where shootings were taking place, we're more focused on the businesses and where people are shopping and downtown area and stuff. So you'll see an uptick in officers in the next few weeks. They're trying to be visible and trying to deter crime in those areas. And also, I was talking to Sergeant Manguy earlier today, and he came up with a great idea about placing a signboard in maybe the business districts. And maybe someone can email me after this where it would be a good location to have one of our traffic signboards out there to remind people not to keep valuables in their cars. I know that burglary, especially car break-ins, are a hot topic. It's a major incidents that are taking place in our city. And the main goal, the main driver of this is that people keep bags or backpacks in plain view while they're going shopping or while they park their cars and go and get coffee and stuff. And then they come back, the bad guy sees that, breaks in, and then takes the bags. So we need to continue to remind our residents and the people that are visiting our city to keep their valuables outside their cars. And hopefully they'll have a reduction in the burglaries that are taking place. I did mention the CROs were assigned to VCOC. That still doesn't mean that you're not going to see them. They still work on projects in our area. We do only have 2 CROs for Area 2 right now, and we have Sergeant Manguy, who's been great. Sergeant Mangai's actually been working on with the chief's plan to doing a toy drive during this holiday season. So the chief's directive for all the officers is to bring in toys as many as we can, and Mangai's been helping out with that project. I just wanted to also, during this crime plan, we did bring back our traffic unit. We have started a 6-person traffic squad. The chief just promised 2 more bodies to that squad, so they're going to bolster their numbers up to 8, which is great because the last year and a half, 2 years, we haven't had traffic enforcement out on the street. So, and they've only been up and running for about, I'd say, a little bit more than a month, and they already have more than 1,000 tickets that they've been stopping people that were, and they're not just stopping people for, equipment violations and stuff. Our directives to our officers is that they're going after moving violations. So they're going after the moving violations that are causing the accidents out there on our street. Also, if you guys saw in the news, the city council did pass the COPS grant about 2 council meetings ago. That COPS grant is going to help us staff our walking officers. So the chief is going to look into bringing back our walking officers, probably not all 15 at once, but maybe start small, like 6 or 7. And then as we have an academy graduate, we'll both get that up to about 15. And that's going to be in the downtown area, College, uptown area, and then also out east. So that's the plan, is to bring back walking next year. Just go on to our numbers. We did go low, probably about 650 officers last year. We have graduated a bunch of academies this year. We actually had 4, and we're able to get our numbers up to about 700, which is great for what we were at for the low end. Right now, we're looking at patrol getting staffed, fully staffed starting the new year, which hasn't happened in the last couple of years. We usually look for about 300 plus into patrol to respond to 911 calls. Right now, I think they're looking at around 340, which is really fantastic. And just to go over a couple of numbers, like the council member was talking about calling our dispatchers. Dispatch this year has handled over 1 million calls. And that is the first time in OPD history where they have had 1 million phone calls for service come into their dispatch center. Doesn't mean it goes out to the officers. Usually it could be something they can handle on their end, but we have seen an increase in demand. Also, our officers have recovered about 1,300 guns off the street this year. That's the 3rd year in a row that we've gotten over 1,000 guns off the street. And our street teams are still continuing to contact people where they know they've caused violence or they're carrying guns to arrest them and still recover those weapons to try to get them off the street. So keep on, I can probably keep on going on, but I'm going to try to stop there. If you guys have any questions, I am here and happy to answer them.
Hi,
Yeah,
this is Lynn. Can you tell us about the statistics and numbers in our neighborhood? And how that looks compared to past or other neighborhoods?
I don't have them in front of me, but I'll bring them to the next meeting. I just know that crime, especially violent crime, we just went over it yesterday with the chief up in the 9th floor, and violent crime is down right now. So our shootings are down, homicides are down. But I know that's not what people, that doesn't really affect people, regular people. What affects regular people are car break-ins, stolen vehicles, vandalism, blight, abandoned vehicles, stuff like that. So I'll make sure that I'm going to write a note down. I'll make sure I get the crime stats for your area. And when I report back, if it's me, I'll make sure I give you guys that information. If not, then I'll pass it on to Captain Rosin to make sure he brings it on the next meeting.
Sir, if I could, I do have some crime stats available on hand. It's
Okay.
actually for the last 6 months, kind of gives like a big bird's eye view, but it's, a lot of it kind of stays consistent throughout the months. But for the last 6 months, it seems that the biggest issue is auto burglaries. You have 157 of those. And then burglaries such as residential or commercial, 35. Calls for 51 for people with mental illness, 34. And then vandalisms, 14. But some of those are kind of twisted in with the auto burglaries, because some people are calling in the vandalism of the broken windows, which in reality is somebody breaking into a car to try to get whatever's inside.
Thank you for handling them.
The statistics or the crimes? That must be somebody else. All right. And then also for robberies, it looks like you only have 2 within the last 6-month period. And then like how Lieutenant's touching on, the violent crimes is not the high point for this area. And then carjackings, it appears that there were 4 within the last 6 months. There's 2 within this month, actually.
Hopefully that answered your question. Does anybody else have any questions?
Actually, I do. Can you turn your down? Hold on, we have a little feedback happening. Hi, my name's Jordy Bornstein, and I'm a community resident for 30+ years. Don't know how that happened. I'm also a BID board member, and my question is, what can be done about the massive RVs, one of which we have parked directly across the street from our house on 38th Street in a 2-hour zone? It's been there almost 90 days, and this particular RV takes up 3 or 4 parking spaces of our residents. And as a concerned member of the BID's business outreach team, this is also taking up valuable real estate for our district businesses, in particular Beauty's Bagels and Oaks Deli. The neighbors have been calling parking enforcement repeatedly, and we've now been told they've maxed out on tickets. We can't give any more tickets. We've reported it on See Click Fix. We have a, what do you call it, service request number. But we're told that the city is 90 to 120 days or more in arrears for towing. So I guess I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do to escalate this, or do we just have to live with it? Thanks.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to explain it a little bit, because my previous job was in traffic. So I think there's a little feedback there too. So RVs, obviously, and abandoned autos are a big issue for our city. About a year and a half ago, the direction from the city was to move abandoned auto out from OPD and move it to the Department of Transportation. That transfer was supposed to take place in July of this year. We're still in talks with Department of Transportation, trying to get them up and running. Obviously, it's a big task of starting a new unit and it's not just as simple as just moving people from OPD over to there. It's actually starting it from scratch and getting the processes down so they can go out there and provide service to our city. So during that time, OPD only had about 4 or 5 technicians that would go out there and tow cars for the entire city. As we knew that this was going to come and this transfer was going to take place, we stopped hiring for that position. People would leave our city, retire. We're down to 2 PSTs for abandoned auto right now. And most of the time they are working with our encampment management team on encampments and closures, trying to tow, because there's a lot of abandoned vehicles associated with the encampments around. I know that RVs are a big issue. And the only question I have, and you can answer at the end, but if there's somebody living in it, we can send somebody out there to go take a look at it. obviously, if there's someone living in it, then I'm not saying our hands are tied, is that we got to put this through the EMT. We have to be able to provide services to that person, and then give them warnings, and then actually post it before we can tow it. If there's nobody living in it, it looks like it's abandoned, then we can tow it right away. But I do feel for you. I know that there's a lot of service requests that are standing. Hopefully that this transfer takes place as soon as possible. So then Department of Transportation can go out there and start towing vehicles. But just because I say that we're transferring abandoned auto over to Department of Transportation doesn't mean that OPD is going to stop towing vehicles. We have officers that go out there every day and tow vehicles. We usually tow around with our PSTs and our officers. It's upwards, it's 10,000 plus vehicles a year. So, and we're going to continue to do that. It's a different process that takes place when there's somebody living in it. So we definitely have to slow down and make sure we provide services for that individual before we can tow it. Hopefully that answers your question. If you want, you can email me after this. My email is jthomason@oaklandnet.gov, and just give me that service number, and then I'll have traffic take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier when I was mentioning the emergency window repair grants, I did in the agenda that I sent at the top of the chat link the portal to apply for those. But I did want to note, and I'll be also noting this to our businesses as we let them know about this program. One of the stipulations to get that emergency window repair grant is filing a report with OPD. And I know just anecdotally, a lot of our businesses, especially ones that have had sort of repeat offenders of broken windows on their businesses, they, sometimes get frustrated and don't, the second or third time it happens, don't take that to report it to the police. So I think just keeping in mind that is the one sort of stipulation to get that grant. It'll otherwise be first come, first serve, but I'll be sort of trying to clarify to our businesses that, if for no other reason, it is important to file the report with OPD to get the funds to get those windows fixed. All right, so we've got a bit of time left. I think for this last section, I wanted to circle back on just sort of addressing and de-escalating situations with people experiencing mental health crises or unsheltered folks in the district. Last time we met, this bit was really helpful. Our businesses shared some of the challenges and experiences that they deal with. And of course, there's a lot of common threads throughout those. A lot of businesses dealing with the same problems. So the resource guide that we put together stemmed from that, as well as this discussion of macro and the other, the ambassador hotline and other resources that are available. But I wanted to just hand it off to Joey for a moment to talk more about this. Joey's sort of Joey is our resident expert on de-escalation and just sort of dealing with all of the issues that come with the folks out in the street, unsheltered or not, experiencing mental health crises. Joey also is the director of Village of Love, which is a nonprofit that directly deals with resources and care and de-escalation, at all the services under the sun, really, for unsheltered folks. So I'll pass it off to Joey.
Okay, so yes, I do provide the de-escalation training for our businesses and our residents, and is arming them with tools to de-escalate situations without having to call OPD. So a lot of times what I've seen is even some of our businesses, sometimes we, especially during the holidays and we're stressed out and just our approach can be a little more straightforward and during these times. And then I've seen the reaction from our unsheltered, and sometimes things get escalated where it doesn't have to, and usually it'll get escalated to OPD. And so a few years back, I worked with a psychologist, and we came up with this training so that we can arm our businesses and our residents in the district on de-escalating situations. So I do provide that throughout the district. I do it quarterly. And I think we have one coming up, correct?
Yeah, we had hoped to have one before the end of the year, but with the holidays, I think we're going to be planning for January.
Yes. Yes. So we do these quarterly, and I also have done some. I've had businesses in the district reach out to me, and I've come to businesses and provided de-escalation training for their whole staff. And it's usually when I do that one, we do a lot of handouts. I do a lot of role playing. And so I let them, like, they come up with scenarios and tell me scenarios that they faced dealing with people with mental health, or just, in situations where it needs to be de-escalated. And then, I give them some suggestions, and then we kind of act it out. So, it's really fun. And then they do leave with, we have handouts like literature so that they can refer back. And then we also combine, and I talk to them about the ambassadors in the district. And I do a lot of training with them. So I train our ambassadors regularly so that they are, able to handle this, able to do it regularly, and show our residents and our business owners how to handle the situation. And that's it.
Lynn?
So could you talk about some of the situations that you see people have come to you with, just to kind of give some examples of what are the concerns that can be helped by de-escalation?
So I've seen some where we'll have somebody unsheltered that is standing right directly in front of the door of a business, and might be talking loud, making their customers feel a little uncomfortable. And so they would give us a call, and then what I'll usually do is I train the team on, because a lot of the same faces we see throughout the district. And so I train the team on developing a relationship with our unsheltered. So usually when they walk up and we just have a conversation, hey, John, how's it going? Or hey, Bob, how's it going? This and that and this and that. And we talk to them, and then depending on the person and the situations, find creative ways on getting them to move along. And sometimes it is even because, like Katie has mentioned, I do the director of a nonprofit. So I do have resources. So depending upon if they are open to resources, I have referred them over to one of my day centers. I've referred them to shelters. And so sometimes the team will just talk to them. And, I have a lot of partners in the field. So I partner with people with Options Recovery, which is a substance abuse program who has a lot of transitional housing. So I've let my staff, a lot of times they know the resources I have. So as soon as they're ready, I tell them, all you got to do is tell my staff, any of the ambassadors, tell Joey I'm ready. I said, now I'll get a van and we'll come pick you up and we'll get you to Cherry Hill. And then from there, we'll get you to the program and get you a bed. So, I established these trusting relationships with them, and not, I don't force them into anything. I tell them, as soon as you're ready, and I just keep that like Motel 6 say, I keep the light on. So they know as soon as they're ready. And if they have that moment where they're ready to accept services, the team is available to call. The team reaches out to me, and then we make that happen. And so then there's other scenarios where sometimes people are inside of a business or sitting inside of a store trying to, or a coffee shop trying to get away from the cold weather. And I've gotten calls, hey, this person is sitting here and they're not wanting to leave and this and that. And so I'll come and, you know, I would come and a lot of times, you know, I'll buy them a coffee. Hey, you know, let's step out here, let's talk. And most of the times I'm able to de-escalate them and get them out of the business. And sometimes it's just redirecting their focus. So if they're focused on cussing someone out or being they're focused on one person, I usually try to separate them from that person and I switch their focus to something else. And then we get them out. I get them out the place of business, separating them from that, what's triggering them. And then I let them talk to me about what's triggering them. And then we move from there into a solution as far as what services could I help them with. So I hope that answered it.
Yeah, and I think just anecdotally, a couple of things that Joey's been a really amazing resource on. One thing that comes with, you know, I think being unsheltered and, you know, just lacking resources. Sometimes, you know, folks just will have like an indecent exposure situation on our hands. And sometimes that's genuinely just for lack of clothes. But Joey's been a great resource in those situations. You know, if I call him and say, you know, there's someone at Casper's that's, you know, not got anything on, you know, I think that's like a public safety thing, but Joey really comes in with like the loving approach and, you know, here's some sweatpants and, you know, just sort of meeting them where they're at and helping them case by case situations.
And it's amazing when you see the ability to just put some clothes on someone. I've seen so many, and to go from seeing them that have been wearing the same clothes for maybe days, if not a couple of weeks, and then they're putting something on fresh and new. I've seen some of them that I've given them a lot of them. I've given them clothes, and they walk away and they walking through the district, and you would never know it was the same person. You would never know, and not just because of their clothes, but because when you're dressed a little better, you start to feel a little better, and they start to feel a part of like, oh, okay, they don't feel like, oh, let me move over here because, and it, you know, and it makes them feel even more a part of the community. So yes, that is another thing I do is we definitely get close to them, try to meet them where they're at and find out what their needs are. And number one is establish that relationship. And Dan has been a big, great support. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Joey. It's amazing everything you've done and your groups and facilities. So Temescal folks are lucky that you are part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Any
you
other
all.
questions?
Yeah. Any other questions for Joey or OPD, Councilman Kalb, anybody? We're a bit ahead of schedule, so we can take some questions and maybe wrap up early. Yeah, Lynn.
I have a question for OPD, I guess. So when you guys are called in situations like Joey's describing, what resources do you have that, you know, people are going to call you? What resources do you have for situations like that?
I'll take that one. So we have our own mental health units that we can reach out to. It's actually a civilian unit that can assist in making contact with the subject. We also can refer their information to the email address. We have a little bit more of a direct contact with them, but we can refer their information to like homelessness@oaklandca.gov, providing their information that they would, if they're willing to give it to us and present it to that section of the city, and then they can do follow-up to see where they can be, if they can get relocation, if they get food, if they can get more resources. And we also do follow up because it seems to be a lot of these issues are reoccurring where we may go and talk to them and let them know like, hey, there's, you might be blocking the entrance to a building or a business, and that owner would appreciate if you didn't block it. It could take a matter of a couple of contacts and also working with other parts of the city to make sure that they get the resources they need. And then also it comes to like an agreeable situation where they choose to leave the area, work with the community, work with the businesses as well. But with that, just to follow up, there are times where like with Macro, they've contacted individuals that have become hostile towards them, and they are committing crimes such as trespassing. That's for sure are times that OPD need to be brought onto the scene to ensure the safety of the civilians, of the property owners, and also of the unhoused to see what's the best way to get them relocated to another location.
Okay, one more question for any of you. So does this seem to be an issue of mostly the unhoused, or is that just who we're kind of, using that term as a general term? Or is it just any other kind of folks having problems?
For me, it's anyone having issues or having problems. I know I've encountered a few people that are actually housed, and they are, and I know because they were clients. So they, but to the community, they might appear to be unhoused, but they're having a mental health episode. So I just really, it's not just I provide services that they need. If they need housing, if they need, I'm now do the HMIS, Homeless Management Information System, and the Coordinated Entry System. So if they need, and I can put them in the system, then if they need housing, but if it's just a mental health issue, then I just address the situation right then, whatever it is. And also, I wanted to say that I forgot, I mentioned this, I think, in the last meeting, but we are currently working on opening a day center that we can our unsheltered can come to. And, not in our unsheltered in Temescal and in between Jack London and Temescal, we're looking so we can have a space where we can get them similar to one I have in Alameda and in Berkeley, where in as real as all our ones that's in our districts, we can have a space for them to come to, and we can provide these resources. I have a LMFT licensed marriage and family therapist that staff with me that provides the clinical support. I have critical case managers that provide a lot of support for them. So we're working currently, I was in a meeting earlier, and we're currently looking at 2 spaces that we can have. So we'll have a place to bring those that need space, a place to come to.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. We're really looking forward to that. I think a lot of these issues or things that we're talking about are, not active, anyone actively trying to make trouble. It's just for lack of options of other places to be. So I think having somewhere like that where they can get connected with resources and just get out of the rain and the cold weather, I think is an amazing resource that I'm really excited to have in or around the district. And I trust you'll be providing the best service. So, yeah, I'll be sure we're keeping all the bid folks updated on developments with that. But yeah, so any other questions before we wrap? All right. Well, thank you all for joining. I will follow up with OPD to make sure we have some data for the next meeting, and I'll work to get something scheduled probably definitely in the new year, January, February. And in the meantime, if anyone wants to continue this conversation, please feel free to reach out. to myself, to Joey. Like I said, our board or our promotion and safety committee meets every first Wednesday of the month. And we talk about exactly these things, and then some. All of our meetings are open to the public, so we're happy to have anyone that wants to join in, whether it's to contribute or just listen and learn. I also recorded this meeting, so that folks that weren't able to attend can access it on our YouTube channel. I'll have that up later this week. And yeah, just thank you all again for participating, coming out for the conversation. And if I don't see you in the meantime, happy holidays. Yeah, and take care. Thank you.
I hope you feel better.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for the invite. I'm going to give my department one more shout out. Neighborhood services. We do septic exams. We do safety presentations. We have merchant watch, which it sounds like you guys are already pretty organized. But if you have any questions about that, please reach out to my email or phone number. And thank you again for letting me attend.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I'll definitely follow up. I'd love to, we have an e-newsletter and I'd love to put the SEPTED information in there to let our businesses know that
Great.
that's a resource they can access. So I'll follow up with you offline about that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
You did good.
Thanks.
You held up the whole time. That was awesome.
I had to mute myself to cough and blow my nose a bunch.
I know. Oh, well, I had to get up because the Christmas tree sort of went sideways
God.
on me. Like, whoa.
Yeah, well, luckily my Christmas tree is about 7 inches tall this year.
Oh, ours isn't very big, but it's definitely leaning. We've got to work on that.
Yeah.
But good job. I think that was good. I'm glad Joey got to have some good airtime too. I think that's really good.
Yeah, definitely. And OPD seemed helpful. I didn't know the SEPTED guy was going to come on, but that is really helpful. And
I
I
would
think,
love to see that happen here.
yeah, and I didn't realize it was for residents as well. I thought it was just a commercial program. So I think that like, even, you know, like I imagine your condo building.
I'm going to mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, take care.
All
Get
right. Thanks,
well.
Lynn.
All righty. Good night.
Good night.